Hey, welcome to another episode of the Cannabis Man podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on the show. I'm your host, Don Kleppen. And if it's your first time here, welcome in. This is a show where we're taking a journalistic look at all things cannabis. I'm a broadcaster here in Illinois. You can hear me on the radio doing traffic for iHeartMedia. I do news at WGN Radio, most often on Saturday mornings during the Lou Manfredini show, House Smarts, hey. And you can hear me there. And I took my broadcasting experience and I started exploring the newly legalized cannabis market in Illinois starting in 2019 when they made it legal for adult recreational use. And I wanted to try in my own way of helping to change the conversation around cannabis. I really was just kind of tired of the same old jokes and punchlines about, stoner lifestyle and the lazy potheads and all of this. And I wanted to start talking more about what cannabis can offer in terms of positive quality of life improvements for people. Whether you're using it medically or you're just using it recreationally, cannabis can offer people a lot, and it's a better alternative in terms of quality of life benefits than things that are normalized, like alcohol, like caffeine, sugar, opiates. That is really a big part of why I started the show, and I endeavor to talk to people who are in the space, and that's exactly what I've done this week. Very exciting time here in Illinois. The High Times Cannabis Cup judging kits are available starting tomorrow, August 19th, from when I'm recording this, being tomorrow and publishing the episode. And they're going to be available at different dispensaries around the state. And someone from High Times stopped by the show to give more details about those kits, where you can pick them up, what you can expect in the kits, what categories they're broken into, when the deadline is to submit your judging findings by, and then what you can expect at the Digital Awards show coming up in November. All a lot of great information, and this will be my first time judging. I'm very excited to delve in a little more deeply to some of these cannabis products, and as we discussed during the interview, it's really important to be giving detailed feedback. It's not enough to just say, hey, I like this, it got me stoned, or, I didn't really like that, I didn't like the smell, or whatever. I mean, simple feedback is fine, simple criticism is still valid, but these cannabis companies, these cultivators who make the products, they have added what they make to these judging kits because we are all basically a big focus group right now. They're doing market research and they want to know, what are they doing that's working? What are they doing that's not working? So the more detailed feedback you can provide, what are you smelling when you're opening up that jar? If you can get into the terpenes that you experience, great. What are you tasting? If it's edibles or if you're just smoking the pre-roll, what do you feel when you're breaking up the buds of the flower? And then later on, 30, 40 minutes after ingesting this, what are you feeling then? Did you pass out on your couch after inhaling a box of pizza? Did you go out to the 7-Eleven and spend too much money? Did you go out into a park and just take your shoes off for 3 hours? What was the impact? What was the effect of this product on you? So the interview goes into that, and that's basically what I do here on the show. I like to talk with people who are in the space, whether they're cannabis product makers, news makers, government officials that have been elected to lead the departments that are responsible for legal cannabis markets in these states, entrepreneurs who are making new products that some of which will be judged in these kits that I was just talking about. All of these people who are in this cannabis space, who are exploring this new green frontier, this is the exciting stuff that I love talking about. This is what made me get involved and want to start this show and bring these conversations to you. As always, you can get more involved with the show. Follow along at C-Man Podcast, letter C, man like human podcast on Twitter and Instagram, the Cannabis Man Podcast on Facebook, and you can see my personal postings on TikTok from the show at Radio Fit. You can find me as well on social media at Don Kleppen, Kleppin, Hi Steppin, like Kleppen if you like, something to that effect, I suppose. But either way, you can always follow along the show. That way you can email me, host@cannabismanpodcast.com. Tell me what you like about the show. Tell me what you don't like, or any suggestions for topics to cover, products to try, anything at all. I love all the engagement I've gotten. I've gotten some great guest recommendations for the show from people reaching out, and I always appreciate it if you've got a suggestion, whether for a topic or for a guest. Love hearing from you. And as I mentioned last week, if you'd like, you can become a supporter of the Cannabis Man podcast, get more involved with the show. I've shared some of the pages you can go to, or you just simply click on the support the show link in the show description notes wherever you're listening to this right now, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Pandora, wherever you get podcasts, just scroll down, look at the show description notes, and if you click on support the show, and if you can give a little something, I will read your name as credits as part of the show, because you then become as much a part of the show as I do, and any support that anybody can offer is very much appreciated. Don't get me wrong, I love it. Just if you're listening to this show, that's enough. I appreciate anybody who listens to the show and who engages if you have those ideas. But if you like what I'm doing here, if you enjoy this information, if you get some entertainment, if you like listening to the podcast, any support you can give is really, really helpful, because this is something I'm doing completely on my own. A lot of the bigger professional podcasts you hear have a whole production crew behind them. This is all just me. So any support that anybody can offer is greatly appreciated, and it helps me keep the show going. It helps me keep it relatively ad-free, and I want to keep doing these interviews and getting information out in this cannabis space to you. So I've got the news joint wrap, I've got that interview I mentioned, as well as some other stories and topics to get to you. So let's get right to it on this episode of the Cannabis Man podcast.
This is Tommy Chong, and you're listening to the Cannabis broadcast.
That's the stuff, that theme right there from my man Yusu Kim, a.k.a. Good Son. Thank you, as always, Yusu. That music right there puts me right in the mood to talk about some cannabis. So let's do that. I'd like to sidle right into the Illinois News Joint Wrap. This is a wrap-up of news stories and events coming up or that have recently passed that are cannabis-themed in or around Illinois, and it's all brought to you by IllinoisNewsJoint.com. You can think of it as the joint you can hit for all your Illinois cannabis news and reviews. Now, I will start highlighted here on IllinoisNewsJoint.com is exactly the topic of this episode here, which is that Illinois' Cannabis Cup judging kits are on sale Saturday, August 19th, which is tomorrow. It's the 4th annual Illinois High Times Magazine People's Choice Cannabis Cup. The kits have been submitted, and they'll be available for purchase by the public on August 19th. Again, it doesn't matter if you're in this space or not. If you're just a cannabis user and you want one of these judging kits, you want to be a judge to tell these companies what they're doing that works or doesn't work, what you like or don't like. You can do that. These kits are available to the public. You just have to go to CannabisCup.com, click on Illinois, and then you'll see all the dispensaries at which these kits are available. Now, as my guest today mentions, it's a better idea if you're interested to get there early. These kits do sell out. I experienced that firsthand myself last year. I wanted to get one of these judging kits, and I was not able to get to a dispensary early enough to pick one up. So these things do clear out, and so if you want one, it's worth getting out there early to do so. Another article by Jason Brown of Illinois News Joint, New Era to host Small Batch Big Love event. They're inviting the public to New Era Chicago for its latest event to support the newest craft cannabis licensees in Illinois. The retail store is going to feature small batch cultivated strains, handcrafted edibles, and other innovative offerings. Small Batch Big Love is scheduled for 4 to 7 p.m. tonight, Friday, August 18th. You can find New Era Chicago at 1308 West North Avenue in the city. New Era says attendees can, quote, meet like-minded individuals who share the appreciation for the art of cannabis, engage in conversations with social equity applicants that are finally on the market after the many hurdles, learn their stories and what they have coming up as well. Some of the companies that'll be at Small Batch Big Love: CannaWorks, Lab 11, Enliven, Sweet Buzz, Fully Baked, Contract Canna, Artet, the 1937 Group, and Oregonics. You can find out more information there, as well as about all of these stories that I've mentioned, at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. And, of course, you can also find product reviews at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Some of the recent ones include Acai Mints Infused Pre-Rolls by Grassroots, Blue Dream Vape Cart by Aero, Biscotti by Caviar, Hawaiian Rain by Cookies, and more. Great in-depth analysis by the crew at Illinois News Joint. Jason gets the best people there, and those people know how to give some critical feedback. So if you're looking to get one of these judging kits for the High Times Cannabis Cup and you want to know maybe how to be a better judge, head to IllinoisNewsJoint.com and check out some of their reviews to get some inspiration as to how you can give better critical feedback. Listener, do I have a treat for you today? There is a very special occasion that has been brought about by a very popular publication, something that you're definitely familiar with, High Times. I know that you may be familiar with the magazine or the website, but High Times is the premier authority on all things cannabis. I certainly lean on them for very much everything. That anytime I'm looking for some perspective on a news article or some new piece of information or any events coming up in different states around the country as cannabis is becoming more legalized, I certainly turn to High Times. And the event that I mentioned is the High Times Cannabis Cup. It's become very popular the last few years. Different cannabis companies making their products are selling these kits that allow people to judge which cannabis products are the best in different states. And that time is upon us here in Illinois right now. Tomorrow, August 19th, from when I'm publishing this episode, these Cannabis Cup High Times kits will be available for you to pick up. And here to discuss all things cannabis, the Cannabis Cup in Illinois, as well as other stuff that High Times has going on, is the Vice President for High Times Events and Communications, Mark Kazinec. Welcome in, Mark.
I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for jumping on. Really appreciate you coming. And this is very exciting. I've heard from so many people over the last 2 years or so, three, since the few years that cannabis has been legal in Illinois here. The High Times Cannabis Cup is an exciting time for all cannabis enthusiasts because we get to kind of look and see what the newest products are and to taste a little bit of what's top of the line.
That's exactly right. I mean, look, we do this Cannabis Cup state to state. Everybody and their mother thinks that they're the best, and this is the best way for people to put their best foot forward and put their product to the test and allow the people, the hardworking people who, they're not in the industry, or maybe they are, but they're the ones who are giving their hard-earned money at the dispensary to help make these purchasing decisions and to help keep these businesses afloat. So we want their voice to be heard. We want their opinions to be recorded, and that's who decides who the best of each state is. So we're very excited for it to launch tomorrow, August 19th. I'll give you all the details you want, but yeah, we're excited for the launch tomorrow. It should be very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people have been looking forward to this. I know, fellow enthusiasts who are in the space like myself just kind of talking about this regularly. It is always a date that we look forward to every year. So as we've been mentioning, the kits are available tomorrow. Where around Illinois, which dispensaries can people go to pick these up?
So we have 29 dispensaries, which is more than we've ever had in the state of Illinois before. A lot of them in the Chicago proper area, but extends all the way to Effingham, down to Sauget and Normal. So we're working with Zen Leafs, we're working with the Rise dispensaries, we're working with Beyond Hello, New Era, Lux Leaf, and Starbuds. That Starbuds out in Burbank, and the Lux Leaf out in Madison. So check CannabisCup.com, and then you'll find the Illinois Cannabis Cup page, and that'll give you all the details. We're listing kit pricing, kit categories, how many products are inside of each category, so hey, do I want a huge kit? Do I want a small kit because I'm a new judge? And then all the retail dispensary locations, so you guys can make your best decision on where to go. But keep in mind that these kits are limited quantity, so even if there's a dispensary closest to you, it may have a smaller quantity than a larger dispensary, such as Rise Munda line, which has a really cool consumption lounge there. We usually get a line of 60 people, starting at 5 a.m. Wow. If you're a flower connoisseur, if you're a concentrate head who loves to dab, I highly, highly recommend showing up early and being ready ready to buy one of these Judge kits.
Sure. Yeah, that does make sense. I love that rise in Mundelein. The Cannabis Consumption Lounge is a blast. If you haven't been, definitely worth going just to check out the vibe. But yeah, as Mark just said, getting there early, any of the sort of super centers, the bigger dispensaries, it makes sense that there'll be a larger line there. Mark, do you have any recommendations for first-time judges? If this is somebody's first time going at it, you kind of mentioned maybe if it is your first time, a smaller kit might be better. I have to imagine larger kits may be overwhelming, I guess, for first-time judges. A lot of product in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the judging process is extremely important. These brands, these cultivators, growers, processors, manufacturers, they put their heart and souls into creating these products specifically for High Times. Like, we're in touch with people 6 months ago who are then creating their processes 6 months ago for this day. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into it, and we expect the same thing from judges. We don't want people buying these kits and just saying, "Oh, great, it was a cool deal, and I'm going to judge a couple of them." It's a real competition. It's a real judging process, and each judge has the duty to go into the High Times judging portal, which there's a judge card inside of every single judge kit. So the judge kit, to kind of take a step back, is a High Times branded tote bag, zipper tote bag. We did backpacks before. Now we're moving to tote bags because it's a little bit more daily use, and people have been, hey, I have 3 backpacks already. Now let me try something new.
Sure.
So it's a cool tote bag with all the product in there, with some sponsor swag, etc., and then the judging access card. That is the ticket to be a judge. You go to cannabiscup.com/judge. You find Illinois. We have a few other Cannabis Cups currently judging as well, so you'll see a few different states. You click Illinois. You click the category that you purchased, which we have 15 different categories. 12 adult use categories, 3 medical categories, because we certainly want to honor all the medical patients that have helped build this industry from the ground up. And then you're going to judge each and every product. You're going to see a list of the products in your category, and then you're going to judge each one on how it looks, how it tastes, how it smells, how it feels, and then a full comment section. And that comment section is like where we really want people to just become an author. Go crazy, tell us, hey, I opened the jar, I smelled lemony diesel aromas that wafted into my nose. I broke it up in a grinder and, it was perfectly ground, rolled it in a joint, tasted, this great creamy aroma, creamy taste, and just go into it. Did you take a hike with your girlfriend? Did you fall asleep on the couch with your dog eating a box of pizza? Like, what is the story related to your experience? We want to hear it, and we want to give it back to the vendors who, once again, put their heart and souls into creating this. So all that to say, yes, judging is a real duty. Indica flower has 24 different items. Sativa flower has 26 items. Hybrid flower has 22. So that can take, upwards of a month to judge. Whereas if you're a new consumer, you might want to opt for the infused pre-rolls, which is 12 units, or maybe the vape pens, which is only 10. And you might have a little bit quicker time on judging those over the course of the next 2 months, which judges get for the judging process.
Totally. And that's really, really great points you bring up in there. I love all that. And for the 2-month thing, I see on the High Times site here that November 5th is the digital awards show. So presumably, I'm guessing that judges have until around then to submit their findings and the ratings of the different products, something like that?
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to want all judging done in the system, ready to go by October 22nd. So a lot of people, they will wait until the last minute, or they'll record it in a notebook and then they wait to put it into the online system. Highly recommend just put it right into the system. When you're ready to judge a product, sit down, get your computer out. I definitely recommend a laptop over an iPhone just because it's a little bit easier to type and things of that nature. And just be ready to judge, comment on how it looks and then dive into it. And then later on, 20, 30, 40 minutes later, comment on how it made you feel and what the effects are, and just go into details.
Sure, and that makes perfect sense. I'm glad you kind of painted that picture because I think that, as you say, this is still very new. I think that there's even the people like myself who are excited about this, looking forward to it, maybe more familiar with products. There's a lot more people who are probably in the newer judge category, people who aren't familiar with, sort of maybe letting their the pothead poet inside them fly, And I think that's really crucially important to do here because, as you said, these makers of the cannabis products have put their heart and soul into it. They've worked really hard, and giving honest feedback, critical feedback as to what all of us consumers are picking up from these products, smell, look, taste, feel, all that experience, that feedback is invaluable to those who are making this. It's priceless because we're giving them direction on what stuff is great, maybe what could be worked on, how they can be better cultivators, producers, and ultimately that's going to make the legal cannabis space better for all of us. So I'm glad you put it that way, and I think it is worth it for people to just really delve in and allow yourself time and consideration to fully judge these products.
Exactly. And we want everybody's support on that. We're asking the bud tenders to really excitedly, ask the customers that upon purchase, saying, hey, you're now a Cannabis Cup judge. This isn't just a great bag, but it's a real judging process. And just like you mentioned, these cultivators are giving us a certain number of quantity of units, and they expect that number of feedback responses back to them, and not just a regular, mundane feedback report, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, tasted good, got me high. It's like, well, of course it did, but let's hear more. What's that experience?
Right.
And this is the best way to get feedback, and honest feedback, anonymously, because half the time you give, these vendors, these cultivators are giving samples to bud tenders, and the bud tenders, oh, amazing, I loved it, thanks so much. And they're just, they just want to appease the brand just so they can continue getting more free product. Or maybe they don't give them feedback at all. This is the way to get feedback. This is the way to put your brand up for the chance to win the most coveted award in the cannabis industry. And we've seen amazing feedback from brands who have won, getting better distribution deals, better rates on commercial cultivation space, doing collabs with other brands, and just selling out across different dispensaries. So it's really cool to see the after effects after winners win.
Yeah, definitely. And that excitement and the brand recognition that comes from a winner of the cup. I mean, all this stuff matters, and we're still so early into this legal cannabis space. I mean, there's plenty of states in the U.S. that aren't anywhere near having like a cannabis cup for their state, because it's, still completely prohibited there. But I'm imagining, before alcohol was so normalized, or even like we have all these reality competition shows between chefs and cooks, and there's how many different ways can you evaluate, a food dish? But we find all these ways, this language, these concepts to convey, to let people know, what's good and what's bad, but in a more specific way, giving them more detail than just simply, I liked it, I didn't like it. Same with movies and other art forms, and alcohol too. And I just think that we are slowly building that process up here for cannabis, being able to distinguish across multiple categories and with multiple different standards of measurement. We're creating that right now with events just like this High Times Cannabis Cup here. And that's why it's just so exciting for people to get involved in it. And it's also why it matters so much that they put in the thought and the time that you're talking about, the effort to give real, critical feedback to the people making these products.
Exactly. We're here to empower the people and simply identify and award the best cannabis brands in each state via a public, very democratic and open to the public judging forum. So it's been working great for the past 4 years. This is our 4th year doing it in Illinois. We always get a ton of excitement. So me and my team, we will be there at the Rise Mundelein Consumption Lounge at 5 a.m. on Saturday, August 19th, ready to go. So if anybody's in the area, please come and visit us. We'll have some extra swag for people, and we'll be starting a little bit of the judging process there at the Consumption Lounge. So
that's awesome.
Be good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely worth going. As I said, it's a fun time over there any day of the week, but being able to meet Mark and some of the High Times people, get some swag and be a part of that vibe over at the Rise and Mundelein sounds awesome. And then one more time, Mark, they can go to, if people are looking for where these dispensaries are, a list in Illinois to find the closest one to them, where do they go?
They go to cannabiscup.com. And that brings you to the full Cannabis Cup website menu. You'll find Illinois, and then you'll see all the details, which will include all the retail locations, all of our sponsors, including Caviar and Legacy, all the kit detail. So which categories we have, because everything is organized by category. It's not a mixed bundle, which some people get confused about. So you're either judging a flower kit, or you're judging a concentrate kit, or an edibles kit. And we even have a topical tincture capsule kit for anybody who, is a soccer mom trying to trade out their glass of wine for a nice little lotion at the end of the night, or anybody who just doesn't, want to smoke.
Sure.
Per se.
Yeah.
But, all details there, all kit pricing, all locations. And we really encourage people to just judge their hearts out, enjoy it over the next 2 months, really just dive into the process and get real detailed, put your off hat on, your writer hat on, and give us the best feedback. It doesn't have to be good feedback, like positive feedback. It can be fully negative. We want all honest feedback, whether wonderfully positive or brutally negative.
Sure. Yeah, just be honest. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, this is like a big focus group. These companies want to know how you feel about their product. So just honesty is exactly what they're looking for. And if you feel like something needs to be torn down so they can build it back up, tear it down and just be honest. But then, Mark, you said anybody who picks up these kits, they have until October 22nd to submit their findings for this before the Digital Awards show on November 5th, which I'm just kind of curious. I haven't gotten to see the Digital Awards show before. This sounds like something that might be fun for people to watch. What goes on there, and what can people expect?
Yeah, so we're hoping to bring events back next year. So this year it is a digital award show, same thing that we've done over the past couple of years in all states, but fully publicly available for free to the entire world. We'll be announcing the winners, talking about the brands that entered, talking about all of our retail shops. We go through first, second, and third place and just highlighting the brands that the judges thought were the best. And then we also talk about some of the judge comments from the best judges who put in real detailed feedback. So it should be fun. We like to celebrate. We interact with our judges who are commenting and the brands that are commenting. We do some trivia giveaways so that you can win, some High Times goodie packs. And and then we promote this on all of our channels so that the world can know who the best is in Illinois.
Wonderful. That's wonderful stuff, and it's very exciting. It's a great time, something to look forward to and something to get involved with because, as we talk about on this show all the time and as everybody in the space is, pointing out, we're building the foundation right now for this legal cannabis industry, and this feedback that we're talking about in this interview to give to those who are producing cannabis products, this is directly going to impact the future of what legal cannabis looks like. They want to know which products you like, what you're responding to, what the market out there really is looking for. And you can answer that question right now. Starting tomorrow at Illinois dispensaries, go and get your High Times Cannabis Cup judging kits. Go to that website Mark mentioned, find the closest one to you, and get out in line early. If you can make it to the Rise in Munda line, check out Mark and his group there, because I know that vibe is going to be awesome. Mark Kazinec, Vice President of Events and Competitions for High Times, thank you so much for jumping on today and giving some information about this judging time. It's going to be very exciting, and I look forward to trying some of these out.
Yeah, same, Don. Appreciate you having me on. Let's get high together. Come meet me at Mundaline tomorrow.
All right on, man. Take care.
Take care, Don.
And there you have it, listener. I want to thank again my guest, Mark Kazinec, the Vice President of High Times Events. Really appreciate all the information he gave there, kind of a walkthrough of where to go to get these judging kits and things to keep in mind as you're trying these products and how to give more valuable feedback. I mean, as Mark pointed out, it's not enough anymore to just say, this is good, this is bad. I mean, I understand that as human beings, that's basically what we do all the time. I like this, I don't like this, this is the best, this is the worst. We kind of box ourselves into this binary society here. Things are either the best or the worst. But, there's obviously truly a lot more nuance in between the best and the worst. And a better way to be a judge, a better way to give critical feedback is to just familiarize yourself with that territory in the middle. Not everything is the best or the worst, because then those words don't really mean anything. Everything is just collected on the sides along the guardrails, and there's a whole bunch of gray area in the middle. And it's better to familiarize yourself with that nuance, with the gray area, and give some better feedback to the people who are making these products, because that feedback, the better it is, the better that the legal cannabis market is going to be. We're building this ecosystem right now of businesses make stuff, the price point is where it is, and the market is going to be filled with stuff that we, the consumers, respond to more positively. And you right now can play an active role in determining what that market is going to look like in the future. So anyway, big thanks to Mark, and head to CannabisCup.com, click on Illinois to find the dispensary nearest you, pick out which products you might be interested in judging, and then figure out when to get at this place tomorrow so you can get in line and get one of these kits, because man, there is some really sweet looking stuff in these, and I personally can't wait to get started here. A couple more news stories here I wanted to bring to your attention, listener, before I let you go. On a related topic to Illinois Cannabis Cup, the High Times event for judging products, Illinois dispensaries, more Illinois marijuana workers, according to the Marijuana Herald, have voted to unionize. Now, just a few weeks after unions declared victory at businesses in Illinois and New Jersey, workers at 2 more Illinois dispensaries have voted overwhelmingly to ratify their first collective bargaining agreements with Teamsters Local 777. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I am going to have a guest from the Illinois Union on soon to talk about what some of their goals are, what they're seeing from these dispensaries, why so many of them are voting to unionize, and if there's been any pushback from the dispensaries, from the companies, all of that kind of stuff. Unionization is a big deal, and especially here in Illinois. Chicago is a big union town. A lot of people don't even know that we have Labor Day, that holiday that's coming up that we all celebrate at the end of every summer. That happened because of Chicago. There was a demonstration here in the Pullman rail yards. People were not satisfied with their labor standards, with what they were being subject to, and there was a massive riot. A lot of people died, and they lasted for a long time. The fallout from that led to Labor Day. And so unions here are a big deal. And I love that this burgeoning new legal cannabis industry here, that we're already seeing the unionization efforts. And I'm thrilled to talk with the guest coming up soon here to discuss a little more deeply about what they're considering from the union's perspective, what these bud tenders and dispensary workers are really thinking about. But I'll just go through this little press release here from the Marijuana Herald. This article came out August 14th. Anthony Martinelli is the writer here. The press release says consultants and agents in charge at 2 dispensaries operated by Zenleaf, which is a subsidiary of Verano, have both voted to ratify their first CBA with Teamsters Local 777. So both of these shops are Zenleafs. These are Verano. And, you know, listener, if you've listened to the show, you know that I have had some subpar Verano products. I don't know anything about the work environment there. I've never worked at a Verano dispensary. I've only gone to a couple of the Zenleafs. Normally, I like to vibe with the Sunnysides or the Rise dispensaries. That's usually where I go to if I'm heading somewhere. I also like Dispensary 33 in Andersonville. Those are very close to me, and I've also had good experiences there mostly. The press release has a quote from the president of Local 777, Jim Glimko. He says, quote, "Trade unionism is a full contact sport, and just like anything you train for, you get out of it what you put into it. The workers at the Pilsen and Lombard locations worked incredibly hard and demonstrated remarkable tenacity, and that's why they both secured great collective bargaining agreements for themselves." Now, I won't go through the rest of this. It's really just kind of a victory lap from the union here. Founded in 1937, Teamsters Local 777 represents workers in a wide variety of industries throughout the Chicago area. In July, workers at legal marijuana stores in California and Missouri voted to join Teamsters in what's becoming a growing trend among those working in the cannabis industry. In May, over 180 employees at legal cannabis stores in Illinois and California unionized. So again, this is a growing movement, and it's not just cannabis. Now, I know that, if you're like me and have been seeing in the news these stories about Starbucks and Amazon shops, those workers are unionizing too. But cannabis is the newest industry where the workers are unionizing, and that's why, as that president said, it is fascinating. This is a 21st century labor movement. And the Starbucks and Amazon workers are obviously in the 21st century as well, but those companies are older, and it feels like those workers have been in this fight for longer. to me, it's encouraging to see these cannabis workers in such the new industry as we are laying this foundation. They're getting out ahead of these problems. Starbucks has been around since what, the 90s? This is 30 years in for Starbucks that those employees are unionizing. Amazon as well. I like that dispensary workers are getting out in front of this, that they are immediately unionizing because they see the potential problems down the line. So I'm looking forward to bringing another conversation related to that to you. And there's another article that I saw at Marijuana Moment here. It's an opinion piece, an op-ed, and it was published a week ago on August 11th. The headline reads, "It's time for the marijuana industry to focus on advocacy and lobbying if it's going to thrive." Now, they're crediting Aaron Smith with the National Cannabis Industry Association with writing this. Subheader is a question that says, why invest in a business that violates federal law and not act to change that law? The cannabis industry, I won't read this whole thing either. I will share it on the show social so you can read it yourself, which I encourage, but I'll just read the opening here, the opening paragraph or so. The cannabis industry is facing unprecedented challenges. People are losing money as an oversupply of product, labor shortages, supply chain disruptions, and higher costs for key components like fertilizer, building materials, and packaging are forcing companies to streamline operations as much as possible. We've talked about those topics on this show. Meanwhile, crushing regulatory environments and tax structures far more costly than any other industry continue to make finding financial success in cannabis very difficult. In an effort to save money, cannabis businesses are moving away from the sort of advocacy that is necessary if the industry is going to remain sustainable, let alone improve. Unfortunately, as Aaron Smith goes on, he says this short-term thinking spells disaster. The time to push for reform is now, as he goes on to say. The current problems in the industry are moving people further away from what should be a prime directive. Federal policy reforms that will dramatically change cannabis in this country for the good. Now, I mentioned on last week's episode that Australia has moved ahead and is going to take a vote to federally decriminalize this thing. We've talked about on this show since the beginning the major change that needs to happen, aside from safe banking, because to me, that is even a subcategory of what really needs to change. What needs to change is it needs to be moved off the Schedule 1 substance list from the federal government. The DEA and their disastrous, failed war on drugs has kept cannabis in this Schedule 1 place, and it has wrought so many problems and continues to this day. The only difference is that state by state, they're starting to legalize it. And that tug of war between state law and the federal umbrella law, that's causing so many problems for the businesses as well as the business operators. And what Aaron Smith is saying here, the reform that's necessary that a lot of other industries engage in, that they financially back in order to keep their viability, in order to change policies, lobbying. I know that anybody who studies politics might feel like lobbying is a dirty word, but the fact is lobbyists are the reasons why some of the businesses and industries are as powerful as they are. Defense contractors. There is a huge bubble of defense money right around Washington. Why does the budget for the Pentagon go up every year? Even though nobody's attacked us in 20 years or whatever. It goes up every year because the lobbyists are around D.C. every day having lunch with congressmen, telling them how important it is for them to pass bills that benefit that industry. Why is cannabis still being, pushed downward? Why is it still so stigmatized? Because there are lobbyists from the tobacco industry, from the alcohol industry, from the pharmaceutical industry that are sitting there on Capitol Hill whispering in these congressmen's ear over lunch at some very expensive restaurant, I'm sure, about how terrible it would be if cannabis is legalized countrywide. They can't have that, because what would it do to the children? What would it do to the fabric of civilized society? No, what we need are the legal opiates. We need to keep cigarettes up and going. We need alcohol. We need the rules the way that they have been for so long. That's the ticket. No, we need And when I say we, I'm talking about us cannabis advocates here. We need lobbyists. That's what we need. As Aaron Smith goes on to say in the op-ed, what would the industry look like if businesses were no longer burdened by Section 280E of the Internal Revenue Code? This extreme taxation mandate effectively doubles or triples what cannabis business owners pay compared to small businesses in other industries. It creates an environment where some deep-pocketed companies can survive while all too many independent and craft operators are forced to close. What would the industry look like with equal access to lending? How would legalized interstate commerce improve the bottom line for small business companies? These are issues the industry must address and work on to affect positive change. That is all I will read from this op-ed from Marijuana Moment. As I said, I will share it on the show's social pages. I encourage you to read it for yourself, but the reason I thought it was worth bringing up is because Aaron Smith highlights a lot of what we've been talking about on this show. There are way too many hurdles and hoops to jump through for cannabis business owners because of the current climate, because of the federal prohibition, because of the stigma and the very real laws that are keeping cannabis operators at arm's length and forcing them to pay double or triple what other business owners have to pay. Now, on top of that, they don't have access to business lines of credit. They can't use the federal banking system. They're targets of crime because of all the cash that they need to deal in. The list of problems and headaches and issues that make these cannabis operators throw up their hands and close up shop, it's a long list. And the way that other industries deal with these problems, the way they actually affect change at the highest level, is through lobbying efforts, is by getting people together, sending them to D.C., and making sure that these elected officials know that this issue is top of mind and they need to make the change now, yesterday, 10 years ago. This is well beyond the time to make these moves, and lobbyists can really help that message get across the board from us, from our lips, to those who make these policy changes to their ears. That is ultimately what this op-ed is saying. It's time for the cannabis industry to focus more on advocacy and lobbying. If they don't do that, it's very possible that this is not going to survive. I know that myself, I've been very excited these last 5-10 years to see the wave, the green wave of cannabis support crash over this country. Every single day, it seems like more and more Americans support legalized cannabis, and the access is improving, people's quality of life's improving, medical patients are living better lives. There's a lot of good that's come from the progress on cannabis thus far, but we are by no means safe yet. This is not a guarantee in the future. It's not even on solid ground right now. This is a sort of, soft civil war that's happening. Some states are legalizing for medical and adult use. Other states are pushing hard against it. States that could benefit greatly from a medical cannabis program, states like West Virginia and Kentucky, who have a whole host of opiate-addicted populations with all kinds of medical issues and negative quality of life. Those states are pushing hard against cannabis because they still believe the people in charge still buy into the stigma. They're buying into the lobbying from the other industries, the alcohol, pharmaceutical, tobacco industries. They're the ones that are whispering into our elected leaders' ears saying, no, you don't want legal cannabis in your state. That lobbying makes a difference. Might be gross, might be illegal, the drain the swamp thing. I know that we all would rather that this didn't exist, but the fact is it does exist, and this is the way to get things done. And if the cannabis industry doesn't start thinking about advocacy and lobbying long term, if they don't start putting real resources and money into that campaign, if they don't start building up their resources there, if you're not finding really good lobbyists, if you're not taking formerly elected officials who have relationships on DC, on Capitol Hill, and you're not then paying them to turn around and lobby for you, it's short-sighted. It's short-sighted. It's not going to spell long-term success. And it's just something that I think the industry as a whole does need to think about. And that is why I wanted to bring that opinion piece to your attention from marijuanamoment.com. Check it out on the show's social pages, and check out your local Illinois dispensary and get yourself one of those High Times Cannabis Cup judging kits and get cracking on that judgment, because I really look forward to the work that we can all do to make this cannabis industry stronger, better, and more long-lasting into the future. I want the cannabis industry on as solid ground as the alcohol industry in this country. I want it on as solid ground as the gun industry in this country. That is the place that we need to be thinking about it, not this state-by-state patchwork. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled to be here in Illinois, but there's people that are in neighboring states. There's people, friends of mine in Wisconsin, who have no options other than to cross state lines and drive hours away to get their legal cannabis products. The quality of life for all Americans should be benefiting from this legal cannabis, and the work that needs to be done in order to make that happen is still underway. It's really just beginning still. That battle can use all of us. So join me. Let's get after this and let's make this better. Let's make life better for ourselves and allow people to utilize cannabis in a way that brings positive change to their quality of life. That's the stuff that I love talking about on the Cannabis Man podcast, and I really appreciate you joining me every week for these conversations. Again, you can follow the show at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, email host@cannabismanpodcast.com, and support the show however you can. Really appreciate you listening. Any ratings or reviews on whichever platform you use, always greatly appreciated, and anybody who supports the show, you have my undying gratitude. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk next week on the Cannabis Man podcast. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Goodson.